The year 1999 was a strange time in the world of entertainment. Movies like The Matrix revolutionised the film industry. We were a few months away from the release of the PS2, and oh yeah, the world was going to end as well. Now, as the world prepared to step into the new millennium, a different kind of revolution was sweeping playgrounds, classrooms and shopping malls across the globe. It was a colourful, electrifying and filled with hundreds of strange little creatures that children everywhere were obsessed with battling and collecting. This wasn't just a trend, this was Pokemania. Pokemania was a cultural explosion sparked by the Pokemon franchise, which of course was a Japanese import that landed in America in late 1998, and it grew into an unstoppable phenomenon by 1999. It blurred the lines between video games, televisions, toys, cards, movies, fashion, and even childhood identity. It redefined a multimedia franchise long before anyone else had a term for it. Now, for anyone who was a kid in 1999, Pokemon wasn't just popular, it was life. Now, to understand the frenzy of 1999, we have to rewind a few years to Tokyo in the early 1990s. Satoshi Tajiri, a video game designer and nature enthusiast, had an idea rooted in his childhood. Now, as a kid, Tajiri loved collecting bugs, but as Tokyo urbanized, those natural spaces started to vanish. Tajiri envisioned a game where children could experience the joy of collecting creatures in a virtual world and share them with friends, and of course this concept evolved into Pokemon. Tajiri's company Game Freak teamed up with Nintendo and the lesser known Creatures Inc. to make the game. Development of Pokemon Red and Green, the original Japanese versions, was grueling, lasting 6 years and nearly bankrupting the entire company. But when the games launched in Japan in 1996 for the Game Boy, the response was unexpectedly positive. By 1997, the Pokemon anime then started to premiere, introducing iconic characters like Ash, Pikachu, Misty, Brock, and Team Rocket. Simultaneously, Pokemon trading cards and merchandise hit store shelves, making Pokemon a full-blown national success. Now, Nintendo of America was cautious about bringing Pokemon overseas. Would American kids embrace a game about cute creatures with foreign names, Japanese cultural nuances, and turn-based battles? Of course not. Us kids in the West prefer real content, like this.
Oh god, I'm gonna fart. I'll just blame it on the person next to me. Ew.
But the risk was taken. Nintendo teamed up with 4Kids Entertainment and Wizards of the Coast, who are best known for Magic the Gathering, to localise the games, anime and trading card game. Creatures were renamed for Western audiences, pocket monsters became Pokemon, the anime was dubbed with new voice actors, and characters were rebranded to a more culturally accessible audience. Now, technically I don't think this is relevant, but I want to mention it since it's related to the Pokemon hysteria. During the height of Pokemon anime, the Pokemon Shock incident happened. This is also known as the Porygon episode, which refers to the 38th episode of the anime, which went by Den-no Senshi Porygon. This episode caused seizures in numerous children due to the rapidly alternating red and blue flashing lights. Now, I've seen this episode uncensored, like where it just shows how it was, and it gave me a headache. Like, genuinely, it is insane that they thought that this would not trigger any sort of epileptic response. But because of this, the episode was then pulled from television, and it only aired once in Japan and led to over 600 children being taken into hospital, which was great publicity for the show moving to America. Now, around this time, the synchronized release of Pokemon Red and Blue, the US versions of the games, the anime series, and the trading card game in late 1998 was a stroke of marketing genius, since everything was just all there in multiple different media forms. By early 1999, Pokemon wasn't just a product, it was a cultural virus infecting everything that it touched. Like I said, Pokemon Red and Blue launched in the US in September of 1998. In these games, players explored the Kanto region, capturing 151 unique Pokemons. The link cable made battling and trading between Game Boys possible, turning Pokemon into one of the first truly social handheld gaming experiences. By 1999, Pokemon Red and Blue had sold over 10 million copies worldwide. Game Boy sales surged, and the demand for battery replacements and link cables skyrocketed. Now the anime. It premiered in the US on September 8th of 1998 on first run syndication. The show was then of course moved to the Kids Network in 1999, giving it a prime exposure alongside Batman and the Animaniacs. The theme song Gotta Catch 'Em All became a cultural touchstone, arguably the anthem of the generation, and that catchphrase just worked so well because everybody just agrees you can't just get one Pokemon plushie or card, you've got to get more and more, and it really did work. Episodes of the anime followed Ash and Pikachu's journey, often ending with Team Rocket being blasted off again. By mid-1999, the show was pulling in millions of daily viewers, with reruns just as popular as the new episodes. And now the card trading. Launched in January 1999 in the US by Wizards of the Coast, starter decks and booster packs were sold out everywhere. Rare holographic cards, especially Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur and Mewtwo, became legendary status symbols. Kids organised trades at school, built decks and learnt complex strategies, often before they were old enough to do even long division. Now the trading card game alone made hundreds of millions of dollars in 1999 and led to one of the first massive speculative bubbles in collective card gaming. With all of this success, it was bound to happen. On November 10th, 1999, Pokemon's first movie was released. Now this movie featured the story of Mewtwo, Mew and cloned Pokemon fighting their original counterparts. Who remembers the scene of Ash being turned into stone and revived by Pikachu's tears? God damn, that was depressing. Every ticket came with an exclusive promotional card, making theatres the new battlefield for collectors. Now, the movie didn't do that well at all. The Rotten Tomatoes score of only 16%. Pfft, what do they know? The movie grossed 163 million worldwide, with 85 million in its first 5 days in just North America alone. Now, of course, school has to ruin everything. Schools across the US, Canada and Europe decided to ban Pokemon cards due to distraction, arguments and other children stealing from one another. Teachers reported that kids were just obsessing over card trading games during class and using Pokemon analogies in essays. Principals had to issue letters to parents warning of Pokemon related altercations. Pokemon became such an omnipresent that it essentially created its own underground economy among elementary schools. You had those shady looking motherfuckers behind the bike sheds trying to sell you a Magikarp. Some religious groups, mainly Christians, said that Pokemon was definitely not good and promoting the following: evolution, gambling, and occultism and consumerism. Haha, Christians ruining everything, surely not. Now several news stories reported incidents of theft, violence or scams linked to the cards. Yet for every complaint, there were more kids humming the theme song and even more begging for booster packs. The merchandising for this show was extreme. There was toys from Hasbro, including the gold-plated Pokeballs, clothing and school supplies like backpacks, folders and even Lunchables, home decor like Pokemon bedsheets, alarm clocks, toothbrushes. If it existed, it had Pikachu on it. In 1999 alone, Pokemon generated over $1.2 billion in revenue in the United States, and over $5 billion globally. It was a merchandising behemoth, on par with Star Wars and Barbie. Burger King released a set of 57 Pokemon toys for the first movie. Now these toys were really fucking cool, man. They were contained within a round Pokeball container. Burger King distributed the Pokeballs inside big kids meals and regular kids meals, and it was to last for 8 weeks from early November through to December of 1999. Now the containers ranged in colour from red and white to hot pink. The container could be opened by pulling two halves of it apart. Now 10 days into the promotion, Burger King North American president had to put an advert out apologising for the shortages of these toys. I'm not surprised, they were awesome. But on December 11th, 1999, a 13-month-old girl suffocated to death when half of the toy became stuck over her mouth and nose, causing her to suffocate, and was later found deceased in her playpen. 12 days later, a second child in Kansas survived a similar incident. Now these incidents were led to a website titled Pokemon Kills. On December 28th, 1999, Burger King recalled all of the toys. Adults were urged to discard or return both pieces to the store. Customers were given a small order of French fries in return. Imagine your child dying and Burger King just offers you free fries as compensation. For many kids, Pokemon wasn't just a game. It was a social identity. Your favourite Pokemon said something about you. Your skills in battle, your knowledge of the cards, earned you almost like a king-like status on the playground. Believe it or not, psychologists observed that Pokemon taught kids memory, strategy, math and negotiation. Kids could name 150 Pokemons and their evolution types and moves, sometimes better than their multiplication tables. Who needs math when I can tell you all evolution types of Jigglypuff? Pokemon also became a case study in globalization. It introduced millions of Western children to Japanese animation and aesthetics, softening cultural barriers and paving the way for anime's broader acceptance in the 2000s, which I believe probably led to Toonami, which was a block on Cartoon Network that exclusively showed anime shows like Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Sailor Moon. But as with all fads, the fever of Pokemon began to subside in the early 2000s. New franchises like the aforementioned Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon vied for attention. Pokemon faced franchise fatigue with the release of Gold and Silver, despite it still having a lot of strong sales. I just want to mention quickly, when I can just slide this in, the South Park episode Chim Pokemon, which obviously is a parody of the Pokemon craze, is hilarious, and if you haven't seen it, please watch it. It is so, just hits the nail on the head with how perfect it is at replicating what this craze was like. Older kids began to grow out of it, even though many returned as adults, like yours truly. But Pokemon never truly died. The franchise value as of the 2020s is the highest grossing media franchise in history, exceeding $100 billion. New games, shows and generations of Pokemon continue to thrive, especially with Pokemon Go back in 2016, which essentially triggered a second wave of global obsession. The adults who were kids during 1999's Pokemania now drive the market for rare cards, collectibles and re-releases. Some holographic Charizards sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Pokemania in 1999 was a once-in-a-generation cultural moment. Pokemon wasn't just a franchise, it was a full-blown zeitgeist. It captivated hearts and enraged school principals around the world. More than 20 years later, the echoes of Pokemania still resonate, in a way that characters like Pikachu had never done before. It united millions of kids across borders, languages and backgrounds into one giant community that still thrives today. Now, I was born in September of 1999, so I didn't get to experience this as a kid because I was way too young. But just seeing how crazy this was and how people were going insane over it, it reminds me of what we still have today. Fads are still huge today. I remember people literally fighting for a bottle of Prime like a year ago. Now I go into the local shop and it's like 20p or 20 cents, whatever you guys say in America. It's insanely cheap. Nobody wants it anymore. Fads just come and go. But Pokemon definitely stood the test of time. And that is the end of today's video. Thank you all for watching. I want to say thank you for 500 views on my first video. That's amazing, I did not expect that. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this video, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.